This is a game on Westfield in the Tier 7 American Light. It's a new line, the M41 Bulldog. It's a pretty good tank. It's kind of like the T-71 in the same nation. It's a little bit slower, but it's got a little bit more firepower. I'm using this gun. Basically has the tank has two options for guns. There's a single shotgun and an autoloader. I'm using the autoloader. The autoloader is just interesting because it's a 10-shot autoloader, 2-second between each shot, and then it takes, I forget, like 30 seconds to reload the clip. We'll find that out shortly. And so on Westfield, you want to basically avoid camping with your mediums in this K7 area from the spawn. It's the same problem. The fast tanks tend to camp over here in this E0F0 area from the northern spawn. Ideally, what you want to do, particularly in a light tank, is to move forward into this middle area here where you can spot anybody who crosses down this 8 line and or the people down on the 0 line as well. And you can use basically any of these bushes over here to that end. You just have to be careful because if they push somebody down here or up here, you can get spotted, and you'll want to have an exit plan. And then what you'll see is that we put some tanks over here, so those guys should hold. And then see how we have a lot of backup on this side in terms of actual tanks that can potentially help us. That's good news, because anything that we light here should be relatively easy to shoot. And this E75 has pushed forward with this ELC, so we'll be able to get some shots on this WZ right here. And then there's a 140 up top, but you'll see that the 140 gets shot by our guys in this G6 area, which is good. So we know that they have an M103 and a 140 over there, so I'm basically just scrolling back in order to reload and get myself back into position. So we know the Wheezy's still there, we know the 140 is still there, so I can sit here and light the 140, and people are shooting at him, but I don't think he dies right this instant. And so this Wheezy's going to poke back up here, so I know that the Wheezy's somewhat ISO'd, so I can push him. It's a trap! And then that leaves underneath here vulnerable. Once you clear out this aqueduct area, once you're sure that there's no tanks over here, you can go over to this side over by the 0, and you can light and harass from over there. We have an M103 that's driving across at our bat chat. And he's gonna just chase after the bat chat, which of course gives me plenty of nice shots. But you'll see also our guys, the JPE, the T54, all of those guys also have shots on this M103. And I'm guessing the bat chat's reloading because the bat chat has yet to shoot him. If you're that bat chat and you're reloading, you might as well just run away from the M103. There's no sense in letting the M103 shoot you twice like that. But eventually the JPE takes out that M103, which is nice. And then once you secure this area over the aqueduct, you don't have to just YOLO right in. There's a lot of bushes over here, particularly if you're a light tank, that you can use to slowly move forward and scout out this area. Especially they bring guys like this E5 over on this side. And you'll start picking up the tanks eventually. There's a little ridge back there that artillery is behind, but he gets taken out by the bat chat somewhat easily. And then you can just push forward and clean up the rest. There's a bat chat. I'm sorry, there's another T-32 down there. His drive wheel's behind a little wall. And then there's a little bit of a ridge there, which makes it a little bit difficult for me to shoot him, so I'm just going to get into close range because he's being occupied by many lots of their tanks. Let's find another target. Enemy armor is damaged. Penetration And then, particularly with these small caliber autoloader types, the more shots that you can get into the engine deck, the better chance to set them on fire. And then the rest is just cleanup. So anyways, my point was that you want to go into the center area here because you can spot not only the 0 line, but if they try to push up this 8 line and things like that. But you should always look and make sure that you have some actual fire support. Like we had the JPE 100, the Batchat was on this outside over here, and the T-54 E1. So we had plenty of firepower there, even though they kind of struggled to damage that 140 on the aqueduct. We had enough to clear out this center area here, which allowed us to basically control this east side of the map and then break through the 0 line. And then when you go through the 0 line, you don't necessarily want to drive up the 8 or the 9 line unless you really don't have a lot of options. You'd pretty much almost always rather just go up the 0 line, particularly if you have fire support. Light those guys, use camo snipe from that area as well, and you'll be much more effective attacking through there. And it's the same thing if you're coming the other way on Westfield. You don't really want to camp on this aqueduct in Westfield. You want to be able to come through this middle here. You don't necessarily move quite as far forward. You can play on this road over here. You can also play on this first line of bushes here, and that'll allow you to spot a lot of guys. Like you would have been able to spot our Batchat crossing if they had pushed up far enough. And if your guys don't camp over here, if they're a little bit more forward, they'll be able to get shots on that guy for free. Same thing with this position over here from the north. It's the same. It's basically a mirror from each side. So that's pretty much how I think you should play Westfield, particularly in lighter tanks, which is basically don't camp in the back. Always be someplace where you can shoot tanks. Alright, and that was it. And oh no, wait a minute, we gotta do list stats. And so remarkably, that was a mastery badge game because it didn't really feel like we had to do much, even though we were pretty far forward. It certainly helped that M103 just let us shoot him as he drove over towards our Batchat. But those things will happen from time to time in mastery badge games. And so the nice thing about having the autoloader on the Bulldog is that you have 10 shots, and if you can minimize your profile, if you can minimize the threat as you are to another team, make them less likely to shoot you, that you can usually get a lot of shots. You can also use the speed to flank things, like we were able to flank the T-32 and he wasn't able to turn his turret in time before we basically dumped 6 or 7 shots into him. And so when you use this autoloader, it's usually best if you play it in a sort of like flanking brawling role, which isn't to say that you can't also spot with the Bulldog, because it is fast enough to get someplace where you can actually be effective in spotting, like we were in that middle area as well. Okay, now that's it. So thanks for watching.